Hi everyone, welcome to this video. My name is Sammy, and this is the E330 Multimode VCO from Synthesis Technology. Now this is a digital oscillator with 3 modes of operation, selectable with this switch right here. So the top mode is 2-operator FM. The middle section is morphing wavetables. And the final mode gives you a cloud oscillator. Now each of these modes has 2 parameters unique to itself. Those are controlled with modulation A and B controls here. And these two also have their own CV inputs as well. Also, each mode gives us 2 different outputs. Now just a side note, when you do plug in CV to mod A or B, these don't become attenuators. What happens is the CV signal is just summed with the position of the knobs. So you do want some external attenuation to get the most out of this. So let me just explain the 2 unique parameters per mode. So if we go up to 2-operator FM, modulation A becomes the FM index, and modulation B, the ratio between the 2 sine waves. Now this is quantized, so you always get some harmonic ratio here. Now in this mode, on output 1 you get an FM output, and on output 2 you get a sine wave. In morph mode you can access the wavetable at 2 different points. These come out on out 1 and out 2, and you use these modulation controls to sweep through them. Now just to clarify, it's the same set of 32 wavetables on output 1 or 2, and they both will share the same pitch. Finally we have the cloud mode, which is a stack of 4 oscillators. Modulation A gives you control over the detune of those oscillators, and modulation B controls the chaos parameter. Now on output 2 you get a stack of sawtooths, and on output 1 a stack of sine waves. Now all of these modes will respond to external FM and sync, and of course you got your 1 volt per octave control there as well. So as you can see, it's a pretty straightforward module. Everything's hands-on and there's no menu diving. And that simplicity is one of the things that drew me to this module in the first place. That and the buttery smooth wavetable morphing. So let's jump right into the wavetables now. So we'll start off with a simple sweep through the available wavetables. So you can hear, apart from that last one there, most of these are quite mellow. What we're going to look at next is a way to spice them up. So in this example, I'm going to take the output of wavetable B, plug it into the MIA here, which is an attenuverter, and then route it back into wavetable A's modulation input. So we're going to be using wavetable B to modulate the position of wavetable A. Now first of all, I'll start it with very low modulation, and then I'll slowly ramp it up. So let's take a listen. So now we've opened up a whole new world of timbres, available by sweeping either through wavetable A or wavetable B. at this point you can see if we start to modulate one of these wavetables, we can get some really expressive animation. Now if we combine this audio rate modulation with say something like an LFO going into the same Mod A input, we start to get some really interesting movement. So in this example, I'll be using the math to do just that. Okay, so now I'm going to apply the same wavetable modulation in a more melodic context. So I'm using the math here as an attenuator, and we're listening to wavetable A using wavetable B as a modulation source. Now if we take one of these wavetables and plug it into the external FM input, that's when things really start to get Now all I'm doing here is just applying an attenuated sine wave to wavetable A's position. Now if we push things to the lower end of the spectrum, we get some really interesting vocal type of basses here. Okay, so next up, let's dip into the 2-operator Yamaha style FM. So we're starting off with 0 modulation in the FM mode, so I'll just raise the pitch slightly, and slowly bring up the FM index. Now you don't hear anything until you start to bring up the ratio as well. And there you can hear some basic bell-like tones. So here's the maximum FM. So I'm going to raise the pitch now. And play around with the ratio again. But I'm applying a very short exponential envelope from the maths. And I'm going to apply a positive envelope into modulation A's input. So I'm going to be modulating the FM index. Okay, so now we're in bass territory. So what I'm going to do now is create a bass line, and I'm going to apply a positive envelope into modulation A's input. So I'm going to be modulating the FM index. So you get some deep hollow basses, and I find 12 o'clock in the ratio to be a satisfying house bass. Okay, so here we're doing the same thing, but I'm applying a very short exponential envelope from the maths. This way you get some really percussive and wooden textures. And what's interesting with this setup is the ratio parameter acts like a nice timbre control on the transient. I absolutely love this sound. We'll be coming back to it a little bit later on in a different context. For now though, I want to explore the FM in a melodic context in a higher register. Okay, so I'm going to take my envelope again from the maths and apply it to the FM index. And I have attenuation control, and I have control over the shape of the envelope too. So again with the really short envelopes. And here are those wood-like timbres again. Okay, so let's move on now. Here's what happens when we modulate the ratio. So that's a sine wave. I'm now going to change it to a sawtooth. And we'll bump up the pitch. Okay, so here's some slow modulation from an LFO, modulating the FM index. And I'm not modulating the ratio at all in this example. We get these lovely metallic tones. And now I'm going to plug in an external oscillator, the Roland 512, into the external FM input. Turn down the external modulation and just listen to the internal FM. Beautiful metallic tone. Okay, so next up, I'm going to plug in a sync input from that same oscillator. I'm going to pitch it down a couple octaves. We get this gorgeous growling tone. Now I'm going to switch out the FM from triangle to sawtooth. This gives us a really nice rubbery texture. Here's an LFO to the internal FM index. And what's cool here is because we're synced to an external oscillator, all of these controls will now just change the timbre, whereas the pitch will remain unchanged. So here's that same setup going through the Polaris filter. So next, let's take a look at the cloud mode. So we're listening to the sine wave output, and let's take a listen to the chaos parameter first. Now the chaos parameter is filtered noise, and as we open it up, the filter on the noise opens up, so it gradually becomes more chaotic and noisy. Next up is the detune control. So that unstable bubbly sound comes from the chaos modulation. If I turn that down, we get a steady tone and it sounds more like an organ. Next up, let's listen to the cloud of saw waveforms. First the chaos again. And now the detune. And this mode is quite fun for creating chords. Next up, I'm going to do some trance lines. Here's a classic setup with an envelope modulating the filter, where we gradually open up the cutoff. Now no detune on the VCO yet. I'm going to slowly introduce that. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this video on the E330. As usual, I'll give my impressions on the build quality, and I can only really speak about how it feels to use. Now, Synthesis Technology seems to have a reputation for well-made modules, and modules that feel really good in use, and personally I can confirm that's how it feels to me too. It feels like a quality module, and the simple hands-on interface is really inviting. So I hope you enjoyed this video, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Take care.